The crystal wine glass shattered in my grip, sending shards and red wine cascading across my sister-in-law's pristine cream carpet. The entire room fell silent, all eyes darting between my trembling hand and Brianna's smug face. I'm Alexis, and this was the moment I decided enough was enough. Oh, look, another mess for someone else to clean up. Brianna's voice dripped with disdain. Just like everything else in your life, right, Alexis? The family gathering had started pleasantly enough. Ricardo, my husband, had insisted we attend his mother's birthday celebration despite my reservations. Now, as I watched Brianna's perfectly manicured hand wave dismissively at the spreading stain, I remembered why I'd been reluctant to come. I'll clean it up, I said quietly, already reaching for the napkins. Don't bother, Brianna sneered. Maria, call the cleaning service. God knows Alexis can't afford to replace this carpet, being unemployed and all. My mother-in-law wrung her hands nervously. Brianna, dear, perhaps we should— No, Mother, someone needs to say it. Brianna stood up, smoothing her designer dress. We've all been tiptoeing around this for years. While the rest of us work hard and contribute to society, Alexis here sits at home all day, probably scrolling through social media and watching reality TV. Ricardo stepped forward. That's enough, Brianna. Is it? She laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. Your wife comes from a family of failures. Her parents couldn't even keep their grocery store afloat. Now she's following in their footsteps, useless and pitiful. The room collectively gasped. My friend Summer, who'd been invited as additional moral support, started to rise from her seat, but I caught her eye and shook my head slightly. I mean, honestly, Brianna continued, clearly enjoying her audience, what do you even do all day, besides breaking expensive things you can't replace? I stood up slowly, careful not to step on any glass. I manage just fine, Brianna. Managing just fine? She scoffed. Is that what you call living off my brother's salary? You know what your problem is? You lack ambition, drive, any sense of professional pride. Some of us actually worked our way up in the corporate world, if she only knew. The irony of her words almost made me laugh out loud, but I held it in. Instead, I smiled, a small, knowing smile that seemed to unsettle her for just a moment. You're right about one thing, Brianna, I said softly. Some of us do work our way up. She blinked, clearly thrown by my calm response. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing at all. I turned to Maria. I'm so sorry about the carpet. I'll have it professionally cleaned first thing tomorrow morning. Don't make promises you can't keep, Brianna muttered. Ricardo wrapped an arm around my shoulders. We should go. As we gathered our things, I could hear Brianna's voice carrying across the room. I just don't understand why he stays with her. She brings nothing to the table. Summer caught up with us at the door. Alexis, you can't let her talk to you like that. Why didn't you tell them about— Not now, I whispered, noticing Brianna's curious glance our way. In the car, Ricardo apologized profusely. I'm so sorry about my sister. She's always been— A nightmare? I suggested, managing a weak smile. He squeezed my hand. I was going to say difficult, but your word's better. As we drove home, I pulled out my phone and opened my email. There, waiting in my inbox, was a message from my HR department about recent complaints regarding a certain middle manager's behavior. I clicked it open, my smile growing wider as I read the name, Brianna McCormick. Everything okay? Ricardo asked, noticing my expression. Perfect, I replied, closing the email. Just perfect. Little did Brianna know, but her unemployed sister-in-law owned the very company she worked for. I'd built my business from scratch, using a pseudonym to maintain my privacy. Now, as I sat in the passenger seat, the wheels in my mind started turning. Perhaps it was time for karma to pay my dear sister-in-law a visit. I touched the screen of my phone again, opening a message to Liam, my business partner. We need to talk. It's time for some changes at the office. The response came almost immediately. Finally going to do something about her? I glanced at Ricardo, peacefully focused on driving, unaware of the storm brewing in my mind. Yes, I typed back. It's time she learned about consequences. Another complaint about Brianna? Liam tossed the tablet onto my desk, running his hands through his salt and pepper hair. That's the third one this month. I leaned back in my office chair, taking in the downtown view through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my private office. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Brianna thought I was lounging at home in pajamas, I was actually 15 floors above her, running the company she bragged about working for. What did she do this time? I asked, though I could probably guess. Reduced an intern to tears during a presentation. Liam dropped into the chair across from me. Called her work kindergarten level in front of the entire marketing team. Sounds familiar. I picked up the tablet, scanning the formal complaint. Just like at dinner last night, she hasn't changed since high school, has she? You never told me how you ended up hiring her in the first place. I didn't. I set the tablet down. You did, remember? Back when we were expanding the marketing department. I was on that month-long business trip in Europe. Right, Liam chuckled. And by the time you got back, she was already established here. Imagine my surprise when I checked the new hire list. My phone buzzed. A text from Ricardo. Brianna's still talking about last night. Says she's worried about you being directionless. Want me to say something? I typed back quickly. Don't worry about it. I'm fine. You know, Liam said, watching me. You could just tell them. Your husband, his family, about all this. He gestured around the office. About Build Better's success. About you being the founder. I shook my head. It's not that simple. Isn't it? Before I could answer, my computer pinged with a new email. It was from Douglas in HR, marked urgent. I opened it and felt my blood pressure rise as I read. Listen to this, I said to Liam. Brianna just berated her entire team for missing a deadline she never communicated. 2 employees have requested transfers and 1 is threatening to quit. Liam whistled low. She's getting worse. Because she thinks she's untouchable. I stood up, pacing the office. Did you know she told everyone at dinner that I'm living off my husband's salary? That my family were failures because our grocery store went under? The store that failed because you were 14 and your parents got sick? Liam's voice was sharp with anger. The one you later turned into your first successful online business? The very same. I stopped at the window, watching the busy street below. You know what the best part is? The bonus she bragged about last month? She earned that using the marketing strategy I developed. My phone buzzed again. Summer this time. Still can't believe you let her talk to you like that last night. When are you going to put her in her place? A knock at the door interrupted my reply. Come in, I called out. Douglas entered, looking concerned. Sorry to interrupt, but we need to discuss the Brianna situation. The team's morale is at an all-time low. I gestured for him to sit. Tell me everything. It's not just the verbal abuse, Douglas explained, pulling out his notebook. She's taking credit for other people's work, manipulating project timelines, and creating a hostile work environment. Sounds familiar, Liam muttered. My computer pinged again, this time with a recording of today's marketing meeting. I clicked play, and Brianna's voice filled the office. Speaking of useless people, you should meet my sister-in-law. Doesn't work, doesn't contribute, just sits around all day. People like that are what's wrong with society. I stopped the recording, my jaw clenched. She's using me as an example of failure to motivate her team. That's actually mild compared to some other things she's said, Douglas admitted. I sat back down, my mind made up. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Douglas, I want a formal investigation into her conduct. Liam, start documenting everything. Every complaint, every incident, every inappropriate comment. But keep my name out of it for now. And then? Liam asked. And then we let karma do its job. I smiled, remembering Brianna's smug face from last night. It's time she learned that actions have consequences. As they left my office, I picked up my phone to finally reply to Summer. Don't worry, justice is coming. She just doesn't know it yet. I looked at the family photo on my desk, Ricardo and me at our wedding, Brianna standing off to the side with that characteristic look of disdain. Soon, very soon, that look would be replaced with something else entirely. My computer pinged one more time, another complaint about Brianna. I opened it with a grim smile. She had no idea she was digging her own grave, one nasty comment at a time. Effective immediately, all employees must document their project contributions in detail, I announced to the virtual company meeting from my home office. My voice carried authority through the speakers, while I watched dozens of faces on my screen, including Brianna's scowling one. This is ridiculous, Brianna's voice cut through. More paperwork means less actual work getting done. I kept my voice neutral. The policy ensures everyone receives proper credit for their contributions. Any objections, Brianna? She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. No, Ms. Stone. She had no idea she was speaking to her sister-in-law. Alexandra Stone was my professional pseudonym. Excellent. Douglas, please proceed with the new workplace conduct guidelines. As Douglas detailed the new policies, I watched Brianna's expression darken. These changes would make it impossible for her to take credit for her team's work or bully them without consequences. My phone buzzed. A text from Ricardo. Working late tonight. Brianna's having some crisis at work. Says her boss is making things difficult. I bit back a smile as I replied, Poor thing. Hope it works out. The meeting continued, and I minimized my video feed, officially stepping away while continuing to watch. Within minutes, Brianna started complaining to her colleague. First, all these new policies, now this harassment prevention training. Between you and me, my sister-in-law Alexis could use some workplace training, if she ever actually got a job, that is. I clicked the recording button, adding another clip to my growing collection of Brianna's unprofessional behavior. A private message popped up from Liam. She really can't help herself, can she? Not even a little, I typed back. After the meeting, I called Summer, who'd been begging for updates. You should see her face, I said, settling onto my couch. Every new policy is like a personal attack. Because they are, Summer laughed. But she deserves it. How's the documentation coming along? Douglas has compiled quite a file. The funny thing is, she's doing most of the work herself. Can't seem to go a single day without... The doorbell interrupted me. Through the security camera, I saw Brianna standing at my front door, looking agitated. Speaking of the devil, got to go some, she's here. I opened the door to find Brianna in her business attire, makeup slightly smeared from what I assumed was a frustrating day at work. Rough day? I asked innocently. Like you'd know anything about that, she snapped, pushing past me into the house. Where's Ricardo? Working late. Something about helping his sister with a work crisis? Brianna paced my living room. Everything's falling apart, these new policies. It's like they're designed specifically to target me. How so? Suddenly, everyone needs to document everything. We need witnesses for performance reviews. Can't even give feedback without filing reports. She stopped pacing to glare at me. But what would you know about corporate politics? I sat down, maintaining my calm demeanor. More than you might think. Please, she scoffed. The most complicated decision you make is what to watch on Netflix. My phone pinged. An email notification about another complaint against Brianna. I smiled. What's so funny? She demanded. Just thinking about how things have a way of working themselves out. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I stood up. Would you like some tea? No, I don't want tea. I want... She trailed off, running her hands through her hair. Something's not right at work. It's like someone's out to get me. Karma, maybe? She froze, studying my face. What did you say? Just that sometimes our actions have consequences. Wouldn't you agree? Brianna's eyes narrowed. You're different lately. Ever since that dinner, you're almost smug. Am I? Or am I just not acting like the failure you want me to be? Before she could respond, her phone rang. She checked it and cursed. It's my boss. Apparently, there's been another complaint. You should probably take that, I said sweetly. Wouldn't want to seem unprofessional. As she stormed out to take the call, I pulled out my laptop and opened my email. Douglas had already forwarded me the latest complaint. Apparently, Brianna had made more disparaging comments about lazy people who don't work during the afternoon meeting. I drafted a quick response. Schedule a formal review for next week. It's time to address this pattern of behavior. As I heard Brianna's raised voice from outside. What do you mean I need to attend sensitivity training? I couldn't help but feel a flutter of satisfaction. The wheels were in motion, and my sister-in-law's carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. My phone lit up with a message from Liam. Ready for phase 2? I watched through the window as Brianna paced on my front lawn, gesturing angrily into her phone. Absolutely, I typed back. Let's turn up the heat. The Sunday family brunch tradition felt different this time. I watched Brianna push her eggs around her plate, dark circles under her eyes betraying her lack of sleep. The usual sharp-tongued comments about my unemployment were notably absent. More coffee? I offered, holding up the pot. She jumped slightly as if startled from deep thought. What? Oh, yes. As I poured, Maria touched her daughter's hand. Brianna, dear, you seem stressed. Is everything all right at work? It's fine, she snapped, then caught herself. I mean, it's just been challenging lately. Challenging how? I asked innocently. Brianna's eyes narrowed. You're awfully interested in my work life suddenly. Just trying to be supportive. Family should support each other, shouldn't they? Ricardo nodded approvingly at my words, completely missing the tension crackling between us. Speaking of support, Brianna said, her voice taking on its familiar edge. How's the job search going, Alexis? Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. The color drained from her face as she read the message. Everything okay? I asked. I need to make a call. She stood abruptly, nearly knocking over her coffee cup. Through the dining room window, I watched her pace the backyard, her free hand gesturing wildly as she spoke. I could guess what the call was about. The anonymous note I'd had delivered to her desk on Friday. Your treatment of colleagues has been noticed. Consider this a warning. I worry about her, Maria sighed. She works so hard. Maybe too hard, I suggested. Sometimes people get so caught up in their careers, they forget about basic human decency. Brianna burst back in, her face flushed. Did you do this? Do what? I asked calmly. She thrust her phone in my face, showing the note. This threatening message. Ricardo stood up. Brianna, what are you talking about? Someone's trying to sabotage me at work, and she's been acting weird ever since all this started. I took a slow sip of coffee. That's quite an accusation. How could I possibly influence anything at your company? I'm just an unemployed failure, remember? I don't know how, but you're behind this somehow, Maria intervened. Brianna, dear, you're not making sense. Alexis couldn't possibly... You don't know what she's capable of. Brianna's voice rose hysterically. Things started going wrong right after that dinner. The new policies, the complaints, this note. Sounds like karma to me, I said softly. Brianna froze. There it is again, that word. You said it the other day, too. It's just a word, Brianna, unless you have something to feel guilty about? She slammed her hands on the table, making the dishes rattle. Stop playing games. What do you know? I know that actions have consequences, I said, standing to meet her gaze. I know that treating people like dirt eventually catches up with you. I know that assuming someone is worthless because they don't fit your definition of success is short-sighted. The room fell silent. Ricardo and Maria exchanged worried glances. Are you threatening me? Brianna whispered. Not at all. I'm just making an observation. Maybe instead of looking for someone to blame, you should examine your own behavior. My phone buzzed. A message from Liam. Monday's board meeting is set. Ready to proceed? This isn't over, Brianna hissed, grabbing her purse. I'm going to figure out what you're up to. Nothing to figure out, I smiled. I'm just sitting at home all day, remember? Watching Netflix and being useless. She stormed out, the front door slamming behind her. Maria hurried after her daughter, leaving me alone with Ricardo. What was that about? He asked, bewildered. I squeezed his hand. Just your sister learning some life lessons. Should I be worried? Not at all. I kissed his cheek. Everything's exactly as it should be. After they left, I opened my laptop to check my work email. Douglas had sent over the final documentation for tomorrow's board meeting. Everything was in place. The complaints, the recorded incidents, the pattern of behavioral issues. Brianna's career at Build Better was about to hit a major roadblock. My phone rang. Summer calling for an update. You should have seen her face, I said, settling onto the couch. She knows something's up, but she can't prove anything. Are you sure you want to go through with tomorrow's plan? I thought about all the people Brianna had belittled, all the careers she'd damaged, all the cruel words she'd spewed. Absolutely, I replied. It's time for my sister-in-law to learn that even the mighty can fall. As I hung up, another message from Brianna popped up. Whatever you're doing, I'll prove it. I smiled, typing back, good luck with that. By the way, don't be late for tomorrow's board meeting. I hear it's going to be interesting. The board is ready, Liam announced through my office phone, and Brianna's waiting in the conference room. I stood at my office window, watching the morning traffic below. How does she look? Like she's about to face a firing squad. Douglas is with her now. Perfect. Give me 5 minutes. I smoothed my blazer and checked my reflection in the window. Today would be the first time Brianna would see me in my true professional element, though she wouldn't know it yet. Alexandra Stone, CEO, would be joining via video conference, or so she thought. My phone buzzed with a text from Ricardo. Brianna's not answering her phone. Mom's worried. Everything okay? I'm sure she's just in a meeting, I replied, the irony not lost on me. I grabbed my tablet and headed to the private observation room adjacent to the conference room. Through the one-way glass, I could see Brianna fidgeting with her pen, her usual confidence nowhere in sight. Douglas sat across from her, reviewing documents. Let's begin, I said into the microphone, my voice digitally altered to sound slightly different. The large screen at the front of the conference room flickered to life, showing my office, empty now, but the camera angle carefully chosen to hide that fact. Ms. Stone, Douglas began, we're here to discuss several serious complaints regarding Brianna's conduct. This is ridiculous, Brianna interrupted. I'm one of your top performers. Performance doesn't excuse behavior, I responded. Douglas, please proceed. He opened a folder. We have documented evidence of workplace bullying, credit theft, and creating a hostile environment. Would you like to hear some specific examples? This is a witch hunt, Brianna stood up. Someone's out to get me. I bet it's my sister-in-law somehow. She's been acting strange lately. I leaned into the microphone. Your sister-in-law? The unemployed one you mentioned in last week's meeting? The one you used as an example of, quote, everything wrong with society? Brianna paled. You heard that? We have recordings of several instances where you've used personal family matters to belittle others in the workplace. That's highly unprofessional. I didn't realize, clearly. I pressed a button, and audio filled the room. Brianna's voice mocking various employees, taking credit for their work, making snide comments about their backgrounds. Would you like to explain these incidents? Douglas asked. Brianna slumped in her chair. I was just trying to motivate people. Through fear and humiliation, I asked. That's not leadership, that's bullying. But my numbers mean nothing if you're destroying team morale. We've had 6 transfer requests from your department in the past month alone. Tears welled in Brianna's eyes. Please, I can do better. I need this job. Like your sister-in-law needed support instead of mockery? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Brianna's head snapped up. What did you say? I quickly recovered. I'm simply pointing out the irony of asking for compassion when you've shown none to others. Douglas cleared his throat. Given the severity and pattern of these incidents, we're placing you on immediate administrative leave pending further review. No, please, Brianna leaned forward. I have a mortgage, car payments. My whole family thinks I'm successful. I can't lose this. Perhaps you should have thought about that before creating such a toxic environment, I said. You're dismissed for now. We'll contact you with our final decision. As Brianna gathered her things, hands shaking, she looked directly at the camera. Whoever you are, Ms. Stone, you don't understand. This job is everything to me. I understand perfectly, I replied. More than you know. After she left, Douglas entered the observation room. That was intense. Are you sure you want to proceed with termination? I watched through the glass as Brianna waited for the elevator, mascara streaking down her cheeks. She needs to learn that success built on cruelty isn't success at all. My phone buzzed again. Maria this time. Brianna just called me crying. Said something terrible happened at work. Do you know anything about this? Sorry to hear that, I typed back. I'm sure everything will work out as it should. Liam appeared in the doorway. Ready for phase 2? The company-wide email about workplace conduct is drafted. I nodded, thinking about Brianna's tearful plea. For a moment, I felt a twinge of guilt. Was I becoming just like her? Then I remembered all the careers she'd damaged, all the people she'd hurt, all the times she'd used her position to belittle others. Send it, I said firmly. It's time everyone knew that Build Better doesn't tolerate bullies, no matter how high their sales numbers are. As I watched Brianna's defeated figure disappear into the elevator, I knew there was no turning back now. The final act was about to begin, and my sister-in-law was about to learn the true meaning of karma. The family dinner that night was like navigating a minefield. Brianna sat at the far end of the table, pushing food around her plate, while Maria kept shooting concerned glances between us. Would anyone like more potatoes? I offered, trying to break the suffocating silence. How can you act so normal? Brianna suddenly burst out. Like nothing's wrong? Ricardo set down his fork. Brianna, what's going on? You've been crying all day. I'm being investigated at work, she choked out. They're saying horrible things about me, that I'm a bully. Well, I said, carefully measuring my words, are you? Her head snapped up. There it is again, that tone. You know something, don't you? I'm just asking a simple question. Nothing about you is simple anymore. Brianna pushed her chair back. Ever since that dinner, you've been different, confident, smug even. Maria reached for her daughter's hand. Sweetheart, you're not making sense. Aren't I? Brianna stood up, pointing at me. The timing is too perfect. Right after I called her out for being unemployed, everything at work started falling apart. Ricardo sighed. How could Alexis possibly affect your job? She doesn't even... Work? I finished for him, taking a sip of wine. Are you sure about that? The room fell silent. Brianna's eyes widened. What exactly are you saying? She whispered. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. The color drained from her face as she read the message. They're reviewing security footage now, she said, voice trembling. Looking for evidence of workplace harassment. Sounds thorough, I commented. This is all your fault, she screamed, throwing her napkin down. I don't know how, but you're behind this. Brianna, I said calmly, maybe instead of blaming others, you should consider why so many people have complained about your behavior. Complained? They're lying. I'm a great manager. Is that why your team calls you the destroyer behind your back? She froze. How do you know that? I realized my mistake too late. Maria and Ricardo were staring at me. Office gossip travels, I recovered quickly. Even unemployed people hear things. Brianna's phone buzzed again. She read the message and collapsed back into her chair, sobbing. They're calling me in tomorrow morning for a final review. I'm sure it will be fine, Maria soothed, but Brianna shook her head. You don't understand. They have everything documented. Every comment, every meeting, every time I... She trailed off, looking sick. Every time you what? I pressed. Every time you made someone cry, took credit for their work, used them as examples of failure? Stop it, she screamed. Just stop. You're enjoying this, aren't you? About as much as you enjoyed mocking me and my family? Ricardo touched my arm. Alexis, what's going on? Before I could answer, Brianna's phone rang. She answered it, hands shaking. Yes, Mr. Douglas, I understand. First thing tomorrow? Yes, I'll bring my badge. She hung up, looking shell-shocked. Badge? Maria asked nervously. They want my security badge, Brianna whispered. They said to be prepared for all outcomes. I stood up, gathering plates. Karma's funny that way. There's that word again, Brianna said, her voice hardening. You keep saying that, Karma, like you know something. My phone chose that moment to ping with an email from Liam. Everything's set for tomorrow. Sure you want to do this? Brianna lunged for my phone, but I pulled it away. Show me, she demanded. Show me what you're hiding. Brianna, stop this. Ricardo stood between us. You're acting crazy. Am I? Ask your wife what she does all day. Ask her how she knows so much about my company. Ask her— Enough! I cut her off. You want answers? Come to the meeting tomorrow. You'll get all the answers you need. She stared at me, realization slowly dawning. Oh my God. It can't be. You're not— I picked up my phone, deliberately opening my email. Like I said, Brianna, karma. She grabbed her purse and ran out, leaving the rest of us in stunned silence. Alexis, Ricardo said slowly, what's really going on? I touched his cheek gently. Tomorrow, honey. All the secrets end tomorrow. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a message from Douglas. Final termination papers ready for review, Ms. Stone. I smiled, thinking about tomorrow's meeting. Brianna wanted to know my secrets? She was about to learn them all, along with a harsh lesson about underestimating people. Time for bed, I announced. Tomorrow's going to be a very interesting day. The elevator doors opened on the 15th floor, and Brianna stepped out, clutching her security badge. Her usual confident stride was gone, replaced by uncertain steps as she approached the conference room. I watched through the one-way glass as Douglas greeted her. Please take a seat. Ms. Stone will be joining us shortly. In person this time? Brianna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, Douglas replied, arranging papers on the table. In person. I smoothed my blazer and checked my reflection one final time. Liam appeared beside me. Ready for the grand reveal? I nodded. Let's end this. I entered the conference room, heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Brianna's back was to me, but I saw her shoulders tense at the sound. Good morning, Brianna, I said in my natural voice. She spun around so fast she nearly fell out of her chair. Her face went from confusion to shock to horror in the span of seconds. No, she whispered. No, no, no. Yes, I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. I believe you know me as Alexandra Stone, CEO of Build Better, but you might be more familiar with calling me your unemployed sister-in-law. This isn't possible, she stammered. You're nothing. You sit at home all day. You run a multi-million-dollar company, I finished for her. Create jobs, drive innovation, or what was it you said at dinner last month? Contribute nothing to society. Douglas slid a folder across the table. Your complete disciplinary record, including testimonials from team members, recorded incidents, and documentation of policy violations. Brianna's hands shook as she opened the folder. All this time, you were my boss? Ironic, isn't it? I leaned forward. While you were mocking my unemployment, you were actually working for me, using my marketing strategies, earning bonuses from my company's success. Why didn't you tell me? Would it have made a difference? Would you have treated people better if you knew your worthless sister-in-law signed your paychecks? Tears streamed down her face. Please, Alexis. I have bills, a mortgage. Like my parents had when their store went under? The same parents you called failures? I'm sorry, she sobbed. I didn't mean— Yes, you did, I cut her off. You meant every cruel word, every snide comment, every time you made someone feel small to make yourself feel big. Douglas cleared his throat. Given the extensive evidence of workplace harassment and violation of company policies, we're terminating your employment, effective immediately. No! Brianna stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. You can't do this. It's personal. It's revenge. It's business, I corrected her. Your behavior has cost this company valuable employees and created a toxic work environment. The fact that you're my sister-in-law is irrelevant. I'll tell everyone. I'll tell Ricardo, Mother, the whole family. Go ahead, I shrugged. Tell them how you lost your job for bullying people. Tell them how you mocked your boss's family without knowing it. Tell them everything. She collapsed back into her righted chair, defeated. How long have you been planning this? I wasn't planning anything. You did this to yourself. Every complaint, every incident, every piece of evidence, that was all you. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. Douglas pushed a final document across the table. Your termination papers. Sign here, please. Brianna's hand trembled as she picked up the pen. The family will never forgive you for this. Maybe not, I agreed, but I can live with that. Can you live with what you've done? As she signed, I stood up. Security will escort you to clear out your desk. Your final paycheck will be mailed to you. That's it? She whispered. Years of service just over? Actions have consequences, Brianna. Consider this a lesson in humility. As security arrived to escort her out, she turned back one last time. I really am sorry, Alexis. I know, I said softly, but sorry doesn't undo the damage you've caused. After she left, Liam entered with 2 cups of coffee. Well, that was intense. It had to be done, I sighed, taking a cup. The company will be better for it. My phone buzzed. Ricardo. Brianna just called Mom crying, said she needs to tell us something important. Family meeting tonight? I looked at the empty doorway where Brianna had disappeared. Time to face the music, I said to Liam. The hard part's just beginning. Harder than firing your sister-in-law? Much harder, I replied, gathering my things. Now I have to explain to my husband why I've been lying to him all these years. The elevator dinged, and I watched Brianna walk out of the building for the last time, box of belongings in her arms. Karma had finally caught up with her, but I couldn't help wondering if it would catch up with me too. You built all of this? Ricardo stood in my office, taking in the view of the city skyline. While I thought you were... Unemployed? Yes? I perched on the edge of my desk, watching his face carefully. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. He turned to face me, his expression unreadable. Why didn't you? At first, it was about privacy. I wanted to succeed or fail on my own merits, not as Ricardo's wife. I gestured around the office. Then it became about proving something to myself. And finally, it was about Brianna, he finished. Not initially, but her constant belittling, the way she treated people, it became personal. The door opened and Maria burst in, followed by a red-eyed Brianna. Is it true? Maria demanded. You own the company? Yes. And you fired my daughter? She fired herself, I corrected. Her behavior did that. Brianna stepped forward. I found these in my box. She held out a stack of papers, copies of employee complaints, screenshots of cruel messages, transcripts of recorded meetings. I didn't realize... I never saw myself. Sit down, I said, gesturing to the chairs. All of you. Once they were seated, I pulled out a folder. This is what Build Better stands for. I handed them our company mission statement, employee testimonials, charity work documentation. We build people up, not tear them down. Brianna did the opposite. But she's family, Maria protested, which is exactly why I held off so long. I turned to Brianna. I gave you chances, multiple warnings, policy changes, training opportunities. You ignored them all. I thought I was untouchable, Brianna whispered. Ricardo stood up suddenly. All those times you defended Brianna to me, when I complained about her behavior, you were actually her boss? Ironic, isn't it? I managed a small smile. Why tell us now? Maria asked. Because secrets destroy families, I replied. And despite everything, you are my family. Brianna pulled out an envelope. I wrote this last night. It's an apology. To everyone I hurt, including you, Alexis. Especially you. I took the envelope but didn't open it. Actions speak louder than words. I know, she straightened up. That's why I've already enrolled in leadership courses and therapy. I want to be better. Ricardo moved to stand beside me. All this time you were building something amazing and we never knew. I built it because of you, I said softly. Your support gave me the freedom to try, even if you didn't know what I was trying to do. What happens now? Maria asked. That depends. I turned to Brianna. Are you ready to earn back trust? To start from the bottom and prove yourself? She nodded slowly. But how? There's a junior position opening in our Seattle office, entry level, no authority over others, a chance to learn humility and proper workplace behavior. Seattle? Maria gasped. But that's so far. Exactly, I said. A fresh start, away from old habits and expectations. Brianna wiped her eyes. You'd give me another chance, after everything? Everyone deserves a chance to change, but this is your last one. Ricardo squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, both for what you built and how you handled this. Even though I kept secrets? You kept secrets to build something meaningful. Brianna kept secrets to tear people down. There's a difference. My phone buzzed, a message from Summer. How'd it go? I looked at my family, Ricardo's proud smile, Maria's tearful acceptance, Brianna's humbled expression. We're going to be okay, I typed back. I have one condition, I announced. Complete honesty from now on, from all of us. They nodded in agreement. Good. I handed Brianna the Seattle job offer. Because Build Better's about to announce its expansion plans, and I'd rather my family hear it from me than the news. No more secrets, Ricardo agreed, kissing my cheek. No more bullying, Brianna added quietly. No more shame, I finished. Just truth, growth, and maybe forgiveness. Maria stood up, pulling me into a surprise hug. You've taught us all something important. What's that? That true success isn't about power or position. She glanced meaningfully at Brianna. It's about how you treat people along the way. I looked around my office, at the family I'd kept at arm's length for so long, at the empire I'd built in secret, at the sister-in-law who was finally learning humility. Welcome to the real Build Better, I said, where we all get a chance to build better versions of ourselves. And for the first time in years, the smile Brianna gave me held no malice, only hope, humility, and the promise of change.
My name is Karen. 4 years ago, I stepped into a life I thought was perfect. Married at 27 to Michael, a man who promised to carry me in his arms before we even walked down the aisle, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. He wasn't just my husband, he was my best friend, my confidant. We shared everything, from morning coffees to late-night dreams about our future. Michael always had a way of making me feel special. I remember our first anniversary. He recreated our first date, down to the same table at the quaint Italian restaurant where we first realized we were meant for each other. It wasn't just about the grand gestures, it was the little things. The way he'd brush the hair from my face, the soft kisses he'd plant on my forehead when he thought I was asleep. Our life together was bliss, filled with laughter and love. We lived in a beautiful house, spacious and filled with light. It was our haven, a place where we planned to raise a family. My job as a fitness trainer at a popular gym brought me joy and fulfillment, and Michael was thriving in his career. We were doing well financially, and we often talked about starting a family, about having kids running around the house, filling it with even more laughter and joy. Evelyn, Michael's mother, was a strong presence in our lives. From the first time I met her, she showered me with compliments. "You're absolutely stunning, Karen, just like a Hollywood actress from the 50s, she'd said, her eyes sparkling with genuine fondness. She often spoke about how beautiful our children would be, combining my looks with Michael's charm. Her approval meant the world to me. But then, one ordinary evening, everything changed. I was driving home from the gym, my mind buzzing with plans for the weekend. Michael and I had planned a small getaway, just the two of us, a chance to reconnect and talk more about our future, about finally starting that family we'd always wanted. As I approached the intersection, a song we both loved started playing on the radio. I smiled, turning up the volume, lost in the moment. That's when it happened. Out of nowhere, a car ran the red light and slammed into my side. The impact was deafening, a cacophony of crunching metal and shattering glass. My head whipped to the side, and pain erupted across my face and body. The world spun wildly, a blur of lights and sounds, and then, as quickly as it had all started, everything plunged into silence and darkness. Waking up in the hospital was like emerging into a world I no longer recognized. My body was a patchwork of aches and bandages. The first few days were a blur of doctors, painkillers, and Michael's face, etched with worry. Michael sat beside me, holding my hand. His voice was gentle, but his eyes couldn't hide his concern. "Hey, how are you feeling?" he asked. I tried to smile, but it hurt. "Like I've been hit by a truck," I joked weakly. He offered a strained smile, but said nothing. The nurses were kind, always checking in, offering comforting words. But their eyes, full of pity, told a story they didn't voice. I knew I was badly hurt, but the extent of it was hidden beneath the bandages that wrapped my face. As days turned into a week, Michael's visits grew shorter, his excuses more frequent. "Work's crazy right now," he'd say, or "Mom needs my help with something." I understood, or at least I tried to, but the silence and the solitude in the hospital room were suffocating. The day came to remove the bandages. I sat in front of a mirror, my heart racing. The nurse, a kind woman named Lisa, offered me an encouraging smile. "Ready?" she asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Slowly, she unwrapped the bandages, revealing my reflection bit by bit. The face staring back at me was a stranger's, scarred, distorted, a stark contrast to the woman I used to be. I couldn't hold back the tears. Lisa put a comforting hand on my shoulder. "It's still early days. Healing takes time," she said softly. I barely heard her. My thoughts were consumed by fear. What would Michael think? What would everyone think? I was no longer the woman he married. Michael's next visit was the hardest. He walked in, his usual confident stride faltering as he saw my face. "Hey," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I looked away, unable to meet his eyes. "It's bad, isn't it?" I asked, my voice trembling. Michael paused, struggling to find the right words. It's not that bad. You're still you." But the way he said it, the way he couldn't quite look at me, spoke volumes. I lay there, feeling a chasm growing between us. The man who had promised to carry me through life seemed lost, unsure of how to bridge the gap that my scars had created. He came out of the hospital room, and I overheard him on the phone. His words, meant to be private, cut through me like a knife. "I don't know, Mom. She became ugly. It's hard to look at her," he said, and there was something like disgust in his voice. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, tears streaming down my face. I felt betrayed, not by his words, but by the realization that his love had conditions I was no longer able to meet. I mourned for my lost beauty, for the love I thought was unconditional, and for the future that now seemed like a distant dream. Returning home was supposed to be a relief, a step towards normalcy. But as I crossed the threshold of the house that once symbolized love and warmth, I felt sick because of the suffocating atmosphere of hostility, hidden hints, and disgust. The first few days, Michael was quiet, almost tiptoeing around me. Our conversations were strained, filled with awkward silences. I tried to bridge the gap, to reach out to him, but it felt like talking to a wall. One evening, as I sat on the couch trying to read, Michael walked in. He glanced at me, then quickly looked away. "How was your day?" I asked, hoping to start some kind of conversation. He shrugged, keeping his eyes fixed on the TV. "It was okay. Busy." I nodded, feeling a knot in my stomach. "I was thinking, maybe this weekend we could go out, just to get some fresh air." Michael hesitated, then said, "I don't think it's a good idea. Maybe you should rest more." His words stung. It wasn't about resting. It was about not wanting to be seen with me. I turned my attention back to my book, but the words blurred through my tears. It wasn't just Michael. Evelyn's visits were even more difficult. She would come in, her face twisted in a poorly disguised grimace as she looked at me. Her words were polite, but her eyes were cold. One day, she sat across from me, her gaze wandering everywhere but my face. "It's such a shame what happened," she said, a tinge of something like disgust in her voice. I clenched my fists, trying to maintain my composure. "Yes, it is," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Evelyn sighed, tapping her fingers on the table. "Well, we must all move on, right? Life doesn't stop." Her words, meant to be comforting, felt more like an attempt to avoid a difficult conversation. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Then came the night that broke me. I woke up to the sound of Michael's voice. He was on the phone, his words slurred. Curiosity got the better of me, and I crept closer to the door. "I can't do this anymore, Mom. She's a different person, a monster. I don't even recognize her," he slurred, his voice heavy with drink. I stood there, frozen, as his words echoed in my head. I was the same person, wasn't I? But to him, I was a stranger, a monster, someone he no longer loved or desired. I returned to bed, but sleep eluded me. The darkness of the room felt suffocating, a physical embodiment of the loneliness that had enveloped my life. Lying there, I realized that the home I once cherished no longer existed. It was just a house now, a place where I lived but no longer belonged. The changes in our home were like a slow, creeping fog, gradually obscuring the warmth and love that once filled it. Michael began coming home late, the smell of alcohol clinging to him like a second skin. His eyes, once so full of affection, now often glinted with irritation and something darker. One night, he staggered in, his steps unsteady. I sat up, concerned. "Michael, you're home late. Is everything okay?" He sneered, his words slurred. "Oh, now you care? You spend all day hiding in this house, and now you pretend to care about me?" I flinched, stung by his words. "Michael, you're drunk. Let's talk about this in the morning." He laughed bitterly, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "What's there to talk about? Look at you. Look at us." I retreated to our room, tears stinging my eyes. The next day, I called Evelyn, hoping for some understanding, some support. "He's drinking a lot, coming home late, and he's mean," I told her, my voice breaking. Evelyn's response was curt, dismissive. "It's normal, dear. Men do these things. He's just stressed, that's all." Her words were like a cold splash of water. I realized then that I was alone in this, that my pain and my struggles were mine to bear. The worst night came without warning. I woke up to bright flashes of light. Blinking away sleep, I saw Michael standing over me with his phone, taking pictures. His face was twisted in a drunken smirk. "What are you doing?" I asked, confusion and fear mingling in my voice. He laughed, a cruel, harsh sound. "I'm sending your photos to Hollywood. Maybe you can star in horror films now, no makeup needed." His words cut through me like a knife. I lay there, frozen, as he continued to snap pictures, each click of the camera shutter a punctuation mark to my humiliation. After he left, I turned my face into the pillow, my body racked with sobs. The tears came in torrents, for the man I had lost, for the love that had turned to cruelty, and for the life that seemed to be slipping through my fingers. Humiliated by Michael's cruel remarks and feeling increasingly alienated, I started wearing a mask at home. It was a plain, white mask, hiding the scars that had become the focus of my existence. It was a small shield against the pain, a barrier between me and the world that had turned so cold. As I adjusted the mask one morning, looking at the blank face staring back at me in the mirror, my phone rang, cutting through the silence of the room. An unknown number flashed on the screen, and with a hesitant hand, I answered. "Hello, is this Mrs. Johnson?" The voice was unfamiliar, cautious yet sincere. "Yes, it's me. Who's this?" I replied, curiosity piqued. "My name is John. I was the father of the young man in your accident," he said, his voice laced with regret. A mix of emotions washed over me. "Oh, I see," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. John paused before continuing. "I can't express how sorry I am for what happened. My son was troubled, and what he did, it was unforgivable. I want to do something to help, to make amends." His words, unexpected and heavy with sorrow, left me momentarily speechless. "How can you help?" I asked, skepticism mingling with a faint spark of hope. "I'd like to meet and discuss it in person. Would that be okay?" John's request was earnest, almost pleading. After a moment of hesitation, I agreed to meet him. Sitting across from John in a cafe, his eyes filled with remorse, I listened as he spoke. "Karen, I want to offer financial support for any surgeries or treatments that might help you," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. The offer was both overwhelming and tempting. I need to think about it," I replied, my mind racing with possibilities. I kept the meeting and the offer a secret from Michael and Evelyn. Their reactions, I feared, would only add to my confusion and pain. After days of internal debate, I decided to accept John's offer. I arranged consultations with plastic surgeons, discussing what could be done to help heal my scars. To Michael, I mentioned only that I was going for routine medical treatments. He didn't ask for details, and I didn't volunteer any, his indifference a stark contrast to the storm of emotions raging inside me. On the day of the surgery, as I lay on the operating table, the mask was removed, and for a moment I faced my scars unflinchingly. Closing my eyes, I allowed myself to dream, to hope for a future where the woman in the mirror would be someone I recognized, someone whole. Weeks turned into months since the surgery, and with each passing day, my face healed, slowly returning to what it once was. But I kept this transformation hidden under my mask, a secret held close to my chest. Michael, lost in his own world, didn't seem to notice or care. The day I returned home from my final follow-up appointment, the mask firmly in place, I braced myself. Michael and Evelyn were there, their expressions clouded with disdain as I walked in. The air was thick with unspoken contempt, a familiar yet unwelcome presence in what used to be our home. Michael's eyes met mine briefly before he looked away, his lips curling into a sneer. "Look at you, hiding behind that mask. Can't even face the world," he muttered. I remained silent, the mask my armor against his words. Without warning, he thrust a stack of papers towards me. They fluttered to the ground, divorce papers, a stark symbol of our failed marriage. "I'm done with this farce," he spat out. "Sign these and let's end it." I felt a cold calm settle over me. Picking up the papers, I signed them without a word, my pen steady, my resolve firmer than ever. Evelyn, standing nearby, scoffed. "Good riddance. We don't need an ugly reminder of your failure in our lives." Her words, meant to wound, barely grazed me. I had grown beyond their reach. With a small smile playing on my lips, I reached up and removed my mask, revealing my face, almost as it was before the accident. The shock on Michael's and Evelyn's faces was a picture I'd remember forever. Michael's eyes widened, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth, her earlier poise crumbling. But how?" Michael stammered, taking a step towards me. I looked at him, my smile growing. "You were too busy wallowing in your own misery to notice me, to see the person you vowed to love in sickness and in health." Michael's face crumbled, his earlier bravado fading. "Please, let's start over. We can forget all this happened." I laughed, not out of joy, but because of the absurdity of his words. "Forget? No, Michael. I won't forget how you treated me, how you made me feel. I'm leaving, but not because you or your mother want me to. I'm leaving for me." I gathered my bag, my signed divorce papers in hand, and walked past them, out of the house that was no longer a home. Their shocked faces were the last image I took with me, a reminder of how far I had come and the new life that awaited me. Starting over wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I moved into a small apartment, a space that was mine alone. It was here, among unpacked boxes and bare walls, that I began to rebuild my life. Returning to work at the fitness center was a big step. The familiar smell of the gym, the sound of weights clinking. It was comforting. My colleagues welcomed me back with open arms, their smiles genuine and warm. "Hey, Karen, you're back. We missed you around here," said Lisa, one of the trainers. I smiled, feeling a sense of belonging. It's good to be back. I've missed this place. As I resumed training sessions, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. With each class I taught, I grew stronger, not just physically, but emotionally too. I was finding myself again, rediscovering the woman who loved her job, who took pride in her strength. One day, after a particularly grueling session, I sat down on a bench, catching my breath. That's when John walked in. I hadn't seen him since our meeting at the cafe months ago. "Hello," he said, a tentative smile on his face. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by. How are you?" I stood up, surprised but pleased to see him. "I'm doing well, thank you. It's good to see you, John." We talked for a while, about mundane things at first, the weather, the gym. Then, the conversation shifted to more personal topics. "I never got the chance to thank you properly," I said, my voice sincere. "Your help. It changed everything for me." John's smile was warm. "I'm just glad I could do something to make amends. You've come a long way." He hesitated for a moment before continuing. "I was wondering if maybe you'd like to grab a coffee sometime? No pressure, just as friends." The invitation caught me off guard, but it was a pleasant surprise. "I'd like that," I replied, a genuine smile spreading across my face. As I watched him leave the gym, I felt a flutter of excitement, a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. It was the beginning of something new, a chance to explore life from a fresh perspective. That night, as I lay in bed in my new apartment, I thought about the twists and turns my life had taken. There was still pain and healing ahead, but there was also hope. Hope for a future that was mine to shape. The dawn of a new day was breaking, and I was ready to meet it head on. The journey of life, I've come to realize, is never a straight path. It twists and turns, bringing challenges and surprises along the way. Since my divorce, I've been rediscovering who I am, but not without unexpected obstacles. Michael, unable to accept the end of our marriage, began reaching out, trying to rekindle what we once had. His persistence, a stark contrast to his earlier indifference, forced me to seek legal means to ensure my peace. It was a difficult decision, but necessary for my well-being. The day I stood in court, asking for a restraining order, I felt a mix of sadness and determination. Sadness for what our relationship had become, and determination to protect my newfound independence. Meanwhile, my relationship with John was blossoming into something beautiful and profound. He was a constant source of support and understanding. On one of our dates, as we walked along a riverbank under the stars, he turned to me and said something that stayed with me. "You know, you were always beautiful, even with your scars. It's just that not everyone can look past the surface. Not everyone can see into the soul." I looked at him, touched by his words. "Thank you, John. That means more to me than you can imagine." He smiled, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "It's the truth, and I'm grateful for every part of you." That night, as I lay in bed, reflecting on everything that had happened, I felt a deep sense of contentment. My journey had been fraught with pain and heartache, but it had also led me to a place of self-acceptance and love. I realized then that the most profound form of love isn't about how we look or what we have. It's about being loved for our soul, for the essence of who we are. John saw me for me, scars and all, and cherished what he saw. Life had come full circle, but in a way I hadn't anticipated. I had lost a life I thought was perfect, only to find a deeper, more meaningful existence. I had learned to love myself and found someone who loved me for the person I had become. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons learned, for the strength gained, and for the love that had found its way into my life. I had emerged from the shadows of my past, stepping into a future bright with promise and hope. My name is Rachel, and this is my story. Growing up, my life was all about church, family, and the simple truths my parents held dear. My dad, Thomas, was a deacon, and my mom, Mary, led the women's group. I always tried to be the good daughter they wanted. I wore modest dresses, sang in the choir, and never missed a Sunday service. But life at home wasn't just prayers and Bible study. It was also filled with the constant tug-of-war between my parents and my older brother, David. David was different. He had this fire in him, a passion for music that didn't fit into our parents' world. I remember him as a kid, always tapping rhythms on the kitchen table, eyes alive with dreams bigger than our small town. Then came his teenage years, and with it, the electric guitar. He was a natural, and soon, he formed a band. They called themselves Rebels Echo. It was like a declaration of his new life, away from the expectations of our parents. Our parents didn't understand. They saw his music as a path away from faith. "He's lost," they'd say with a sigh. I'd sit there, listening, feeling torn between loyalty to my family and the love for my brother. Despite their disapproval, David and I stayed close. We'd talk on the phone late at night, him sharing stories of his gigs, me whispering about life at home. He was my window to a world beyond our small town, a world I yearned to explore, but never dared to. Then came Michael, my husband, or as I thought back then, the love of my life. He was older, a friend of a friend from church. Michael was everything my parents admired, kind, successful, and deeply religious. We dated briefly, and before I knew it, there was a ring on my finger and a promise of forever. Our wedding was beautiful but bittersweet. David wasn't there. Mom and Dad insisted, and I, as always, didn't argue. Michael held my hand, his smile warm, but my heart ached for my brother. As we exchanged vows, I couldn't help but feel a part of my world was missing. After the wedding, we moved into Michael's house. It was a cozy place, filled with the promise of a happy future. But as I unpacked my things, I couldn't shake off the feeling of something missing. I remember Michael noticing my distant look. "Everything okay, Rachel?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me. "Yeah, just thinking about David," I replied, forcing a smile. "He's made his choices, Rachel. We need to focus on our life, our future," he said, a hint of firmness in his voice. I nodded, knowing he was right. But deep down, I couldn't let go of the bond I shared with my brother, no matter how far our paths had diverged. The first few months of marriage felt like a dream. Michael was attentive and caring, always making sure I was happy. Our days were filled with shared laughter and long talks into the night. He'd often surprise me with small gifts or a bouquet of flowers, just because. "Morning, beautiful." He'd greet me every day with a kiss, his eyes sparkling with affection. "Good morning," I'd reply, my heart fluttering with happiness. We'd spend weekends exploring nearby towns, trying out little diners, and walking hand in hand by the riverside. Everything felt perfect, like a life I had only imagined in my dreams. But as time passed, I began to feel a bit restless. I loved being with Michael, but there was a part of me that wanted more than just being a housewife. Back in college, I had dreams of becoming a teacher. I missed learning, being around people, and feeling like I was contributing to something. One evening, while Michael was reading in the living room, I gathered the courage to bring it up. "Michael, can we talk about something?" I asked, sitting next to him. "Of course, what's on your mind?" he replied, putting his book down. "I've been thinking, maybe I could look for a job, or at least some volunteer work. I want to do something more with my time," I said hesitantly. He looked at me, surprised. "But Rachel, you don't need to work. I'm here to take care of everything. Isn't this what you always wanted?" I paused, not wanting to upset him. "I know, and I appreciate that. But I need something of my own, you know? Something that makes me feel fulfilled." Michael sighed, taking my hand. "I just want you to be happy, Rachel. But think about our future, our plans for a family. Don't you think your place is here with me, building that future?" I understood his point, but it didn't sit right with me. Still, I didn't want to argue. "Maybe you're right. I'll think about it," I said, forcing a smile. As days turned into weeks, I tried to push those thoughts aside. I focused on being the best wife I could be, cooking meals, keeping the house tidy, and supporting Michael. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing a part of myself, the part that yearned for independence and a sense of purpose outside our home. Despite these creeping doubts, our life together seemed good on the surface. We were the ideal couple in everyone's eyes. But as the months rolled by, changes in our home became more noticeable. Michael, once so attentive and present, started coming home late, often missing dinner. At first, he would apologize, citing work pressure and important projects. "Sorry, Rachel, work's a nightmare right now. I hope you understand," he'd say, barely looking up from his phone. I tried to be understanding. "It's okay, Michael. Work is important. Just don't overdo it, okay?" But deep down, I felt lonely and neglected. The house, once filled with laughter and conversation, now felt empty and quiet. I found myself often sitting by the window, waiting for him to come home. One evening, when Michael came home later than usual, I decided to address the growing distance between us. "Michael, we need to talk," I started as he walked through the door. He looked tired, rubbing his eyes. "What is it now, Rachel?" I hesitated, taken aback by his tone. "It's just, you've been coming home late a lot. I miss spending time with you." He sighed, dropping his keys on the table. "Rachel, I'm working hard for us, for our future. You should be grateful, not complaining." I felt a sting at his words. "I am grateful, but I also miss my husband. Is it wrong to want to spend time together?" Michael's face hardened. "Look, I'm doing my best here. Maybe you should find some hobbies or something to keep you busy." His words hurt, but I swallowed the pain. "Maybe you're right," I murmured, even though it felt wrong. The conversations became less frequent after that. Michael grew more distant, and I felt more isolated. I started questioning everything: our marriage, my role as a wife, and my own happiness. It felt like we were living separate lives under the same roof. One day, I was cleaning the house and found a receipt for a restaurant in Michael's coat pocket. It was dated for a night he said he'd been working late. My heart sank. Confronting him seemed daunting, but the seed of doubt had been planted. That night, as we sat at the dinner table, I brought it up. "Michael, I found a receipt in your coat. It was for the night you said you were working late," I said, my voice trembling. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "So? I grabbed a bite after work. What's the big deal?" "It's not that. It's just, you never mentioned it. Are you sure there's nothing else I should know?" I asked, hoping for honesty. Michael's response was quick and sharp. "Rachel, you're being paranoid. I'm tired of this constant questioning. Can't a man have some peace in his own home?" I recoiled at his words, feeling a mix of guilt and frustration. Was I wrong to question him? But the doubt lingered, gnawing at me. Feeling the growing distance in our marriage, I knew I needed something to fill the void. The idea of getting a job or doing something meaningful was still on my mind. It was a scary thought, going against Michael's wishes, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that I needed this for myself. One morning, after Michael left for work, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open. I started looking for job openings. There were a few that caught my eye, but one in particular stood out: a teaching assistant position at a local community center. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I hesitated for a moment before applying. My heart was racing. This was it, my first real step towards something of my own. When I hit the submit button, I felt a mix of fear and excitement. A few days later, I got a call. They wanted to interview me. I was over the moon, but also nervous about how Michael would react. I decided to keep it to myself until I knew more. The interview went well, and they offered me the position. I was ecstatic. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was doing something for myself. But the thought of telling Michael dampened my excitement. That evening, when Michael came home, I gathered all my courage. "Michael, I have something to tell you," I started, my voice shaking. He looked at me, his expression tired. "What is it now, Rachel?" I got a job, as a teaching assistant. It's just part-time," I said quickly, almost in a whisper. Michael's reaction was not what I expected. He just stared at me for a moment, then shrugged. "Do what you want, Rachel. I don't have the energy to argue about this." I was taken aback by his indifference. Part of me had hoped he would see this as a positive step, but it seemed he didn't care. Despite his reaction, I felt a newfound sense of purpose. The job was rewarding, and I loved interacting with the children and other staff. It was a breath of fresh air, a break from the loneliness and tension at home. With each day at the community center, I felt more confident and independent. It was a small job, but it meant the world to me. It gave me something to look forward to, something that was just mine. But at home, things with Michael were deteriorating. He was home even less, and when he was, we barely spoke. The once warm and loving man I married was now just a stranger passing by in the hallway. The day of our wedding anniversary was bittersweet. The house buzzed with preparations, yet Michael was nowhere to be seen, supposedly tied up with work. My parents fluttered around, trying to make everything perfect, their efforts casting a shadow over the hollow feeling in my heart. Then, in the midst of the controlled chaos, David arrived, his presence like a burst of fresh air. He strode in, carrying not just his charismatic aura, but also his laptop, brimming with stories from his life on the road. "David, what are you doing here?" My mother's voice was sharp, laced with disapproval. "I couldn't miss Rachel's big day, could I?" David replied, his tone light yet defiant. Ignoring the tension, David turned to me, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Got something to show you, sis. You won't believe the parties and the people I've met." We sat down in a quiet corner, and he flipped open his laptop. As he scrolled through photos of crowded stages, vibrant parties, and smiling faces, a strange feeling settled in my stomach. These were glimpses into a world so different from mine. Then, in a casual swipe, everything changed. There he was, Michael. In the midst of a raucous party, with a woman clinging to his arm, laughing, carefree, and so very unlike the man I knew. "Wait, who's that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, pointing to Michael in the photo. David glanced at the screen, nonchalant. "Oh, him! That's just some guy who's been hanging out with us a lot. Real ladies' man, changes girls like he changes guitar strings. Says he's got a boring and stupid wife at home." His words hit me like a punch in the gut. Boring. Stupid. Was that how Michael saw me? Before I could process it all, the front door swung open. Michael walked in, his usual mask of composure shattered the moment he saw David. "David, what the hell are you doing here?" Michael's voice was laced with a panic. David looked up, surprise and realization dawning on his face. "Wait a minute. You're the husband? This is your Mike?" The room fell silent. My parents, unaware of the storm brewing, looked on in confusion. Michael's eyes darted between me and David, the color draining from his face. I held up the laptop, the image of him at the party glaring back at us. "Is this what you do on your late nights at work, Michael? Is this who you really are?" Michael opened his mouth, but no words came out. His silence was answer enough. The room spun around me. The walls of our home, once a sanctuary, felt like they were closing in. Betrayal, lies, the facade of our perfect marriage. It all crumbled down in that moment. David stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder, a silent pillar of support. My parents were still trying to grasp the situation, their expressions shifting from shock to disappointment. The silence in the room was deafening after David's revelation. I stood there, holding the photo, feeling like the ground had been pulled from under my feet. My parents were staring at Michael, waiting for an explanation. Michael's eyes were fixed on the floor. "Michael, is this true?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. Then he looked up, his face a mixture of guilt and regret. "Rachel, I can explain." "Explain? How do you explain this?" I said, my voice rising as I waved the photo. "It was just a mistake, Rachel. It meant nothing. I was just confused," Michael stammered. "A mistake? Confused? For how long have you been lying to me?" My voice was shaking with anger and hurt. "Rachel, please, let's talk about this privately," he pleaded, glancing nervously at my parents and David. "No, Michael, I deserve to know the truth. Here and now," I insisted. My mom stepped forward, her face filled with concern. "Rachel, maybe you two should—" "No, Mom, I need answers," I interrupted, my gaze still fixed on Michael. David was quiet, his expression somber. He put a hand on my shoulder, a silent show of support. Michael took a deep breath. "It started a few months ago. I was feeling overwhelmed, and she was there. It was a stupid mistake. I love you, Rachel." His words felt like a slap in the face. Love? How could he call this love? "I can't believe this. All those late nights, the times you weren't here." "It was all a lie," I said, the reality of his betrayal sinking in. "I'm sorry, Rachel. I never wanted to hurt you," he said, his voice breaking. "But you did, Michael. You broke our vows. You broke my trust," I replied, tears streaming down my face. My dad spoke up, his voice stern. "You need to leave, Michael. Now." Michael looked like he wanted to say more, but he didn't. He turned and walked out, the door closing behind him with a finality that echoed in my heart. The room was quiet again. My mom came over and hugged me, her embrace warm but unable to comfort the ache in my heart. David stood beside me, his presence a reminder of the family that still stood with me. I felt broken, the illusions of my perfect marriage shattered into a million pieces. But amidst the pain, there was a flicker of something else, a sense of clarity. The truth was out, and now I had to find a way to pick up the pieces and rebuild my life, a life that was mine and mine alone. The days following the revelation were a blur. My parents tried to comfort me, but their words felt distant. David stayed by my side, a silent guardian, his presence a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone. I knew what I had to do. The decision was clear, even through the fog of my pain. I needed to end my marriage with Michael. It wasn't just about his betrayal. It was about reclaiming my life, my identity. Sitting at the kitchen table, David broke the silence. "You okay, sis?" I looked up, my eyes tired. "I will be. I need to start the divorce process. I can't stay in this marriage." David nodded. "I'm here for you, whatever you need." Meetings with lawyers were emotionally draining. I sat across from Michael at our final meeting, his face filled with remorse. "Rachel, I am so sorry. I never wanted things to end this way," he said, his voice low. "I know, but sorry isn't enough, Michael. You broke our trust, and I need to move on," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He nodded, looking defeated. "I just wish I could make things right." "Some things can't be undone," I said, signing the last of the papers. Walking out of that office, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was over. I was free from the lies, the deceit. But with that freedom came the realization of my new reality. I was alone, truly alone for the first time in my life. The following weeks were a time of self-reflection. I spent hours talking with David, who shared his own stories of heartbreak and healing. My parents, though still struggling with their own feelings about the divorce, offered their support. One evening, sitting in the living room with a cup of tea, Mom spoke up. "Rachel, we're here for you. You're strong, and you'll get through this." Dad nodded in agreement. "You've always been our rock, even when we didn't see it. We're proud of you." Their words, simple and sincere, touched me. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope. I also threw myself into my work at the community center. The children's laughter and innocence were a balm to my wounded heart. I found joy in small moments, a smile from a child, a successful lesson, a thank you from a parent. In the midst of the fallout, I discovered a resilience within me that I didn't know existed. I started to rebuild my life, piece by piece. It wasn't easy, and there were days when I felt overwhelmed by loneliness and doubt. But I kept moving forward, driven by a newfound determination to live a life that was true to myself. Sitting in the small corner cafe, I cradled a warm cup of coffee, my mind drifting back through the whirlwind of recent events. The steam from the coffee blurred with my thoughts, each memory unfolding like a scene from a distant play. I remembered the day in court, the final decree of our divorce. Michael had sat there, a shadow of the man I once knew. He looked pathetic, his eyes void of the confidence he once carried. It was a stark contrast to the man I married, a sight that stirred a mix of pity and relief in me. Then came the tedious, bitter process of dividing our assets. Michael, who once professed undying love, was now coldly squabbling over every cent. It was a tedious and painful process, stripping away any lingering sentiments I had for the marriage we shared. Perhaps the most vivid memory was the last time I saw Michael. He had come to my doorstep, unannounced, his eyes red and swollen. He fell to his knees, begging for forgiveness, pleading for a second chance. I stood there, watching him, feeling nothing but contempt. The tears, the pleas, they meant nothing. They were just the last desperate acts of a man who had lost everything through his own doing. Through all these moments, David was my pillar of strength. He was there in the courtroom, offering silent support with his presence. And on that final encounter with Michael, David stood by my side, a protective force against the man who had broken my trust. As I sat in the cafe, the noise of the bustling city around me, I realized how much I had changed. The naive girl who entered that marriage was gone, replaced by a woman who had faced betrayal and come out stronger. I felt a sense of pride in my newfound independence and resilience. My gaze shifted to the busy street outside the cafe window. People were going about their lives, each absorbed in their own stories. I felt a kinship with them, a shared understanding of the struggles and triumphs life brings. I took a sip of my coffee, its warmth spreading through me. I was starting over, but this time on my own terms. There was a future out there waiting for me, filled with possibilities and new beginnings. I was ready to embrace it, with my past as a lesson and my brother's support as my strength. In the heart of a quaint town, nestled among rolling hills and meandering streams, I grew up in a world far removed from the glitz and glamour of city life. Our small, weathered house, with its creaking wooden floors and windows offering views of sprawling fields, was a universe in itself. It was here, amidst the simplicity and warmth of family love, that my story began. My parents, though not affluent, were rich in kindness and wisdom. My father, a local carpenter, had hands that were roughened by years of labor, but gentle in touch, crafting not just furniture, but also instilling in me the values of hard work and humility. My mother, a schoolteacher, filled our home with books and stories, weaving tales that sparked my imagination and nurtured my dreams. Life in our small town was unhurried and unpretentious. Neighbors greeted each other with familiarity, and community events were the highlights of our social calendar. I cherished this life, finding joy in the small pleasures, the fresh scent of earth after rain, the rustling of leaves underfoot, and the chorus of birds at dawn. It was at the local library where I first encountered Mark. He was unlike anyone I had known, a visitor from the city, with an air of sophistication yet an unassuming nature. His family was well known in the business circles, their wealth and influence reaching far beyond the city's skyscrapers. But Mark, with his easy smile and genuine interest in my mundane tales, was a refreshing anomaly in that world. Our initial conversations were tentative, like two worlds cautiously orbiting each other. He spoke of city life, the fast pace, the endless opportunities, and the dazzling lights. I shared stories of my town, the annual harvest festival, the serene walks by the stream, and the close-knit community. In those early days, we would often meet at the old park bench by the lake, our conversations stretching for hours. The lake, with its placid waters reflecting the changing hues of the sky, bore witness to our growing connection, an invisible thread weaving our disparate worlds into one. "Anna," Mark said to me one evening, his voice tinged with a vulnerability I had not seen before. "I have always been surrounded by people who care more about wealth and status. But with you, I found a serenity that I didn't know existed. You've shown me a different way of life, one that's genuine and full of warmth." His words stirred something deep within me. "Mark, where we come from doesn't define us. It's who we are when we're together that matters. You've brought a new perspective into my life, opening my eyes to dreams I never dared to have." As our relationship deepened, Mark confided in me about his family, particularly his mother, a woman of elegance but stringent expectations. He spoke of her with respect, yet there was an underlying concern in his words. "She has her own ideas about who I should be with. I'm just worried about how she'll react to, well, to us." I reached out, taking his hand in mine, feeling the slight tremor. "We'll face that together," I assured him. "Love isn't about backgrounds or expectations. It's about two people who choose each other against all odds." The day Mark proposed was as unassuming as our love. No grand gestures, just a heartfelt promise of a life together. As I looked into his eyes, brimming with hope and love, I knew this was just the beginning. The evening I was set to meet Mark's family, my nerves were on edge. The grandeur of their mansion loomed large as we approached, a stark reminder of the different worlds Mark and I came from. Mark held my hand, giving me a reassuring look. "Just be yourself, Anna. That's all you need to be. I smiled weakly, trying to quell the rising anxiety. I just hope your mom doesn't think I'm out of place. Mark sighed, a hint of concern in his eyes. Mom can be a bit much. Just remember, I'm here with you. As we entered the opulent dining room, Mark's mother, Marion, a statuesque woman with an air of austerity, greeted us. Her eyes quickly took me in, a flicker of disapproval passing over her face. So, this is the young lady who's captured my son's heart. Interesting choice, Mark. Dinner was an elaborate affair, the table set with dishes I couldn't even name. Mark's mother, ever the gracious host, offered me a plate with a sly smile. I suppose these dishes might be a bit too sophisticated for your taste, Anna. We can get something simpler if you'd prefer. I felt a flush of embarrassment, but managed a polite decline. No, thank you. I'm always eager to try new things. As the evening progressed, her comments grew more pointed. She eyed my dress, a simple but neat outfit I had thought was appropriate. Is that what passes for evening wear in your town? It must be challenging to find good clothes on a modest budget. Mark jumped in, trying to steer the conversation elsewhere, but his mother was unrelenting. Tell me, Anna, what do your parents do? It's always fascinating to learn about different walks of life. I answered, feeling the weight of her judgment. My father is a carpenter, and my mother is a schoolteacher. Oh, how quaint, she replied, her voice dripping with condescendence. Hardworking people, I'm sure, but I suppose they couldn't offer you much in the way of a financial head start. The meal continued with her taking jabs at my small-town upbringing, my parents' humble occupations, and even my salary, which she had somehow learned about. Each comment was veiled in politeness, but sharp enough to cut. Mark was visibly uncomfortable, his attempts at defending me only seeming to amuse her more. As we left, Mark's father, Daniel, pulled me aside, offering a kind smile. Anna, you handled yourself well. Don't let her get to you. She'll come around. In the car, Mark apologized profusely. I'm so sorry, Anna. I didn't think she'd be this harsh. I sighed, a mix of hurt and determination in my voice. It's okay, Mark. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I love you, and that's what matters. That night, as I lay in bed, the sting of his mother's words lingered. But beneath the hurt, a resolve was building. This was more than just about fitting in. It was a test of our love and my strength, and I was ready to face it head on. As the wedding day approached, the air was thick with excitement and, unfortunately, growing tension. Marion, who had taken it upon herself to oversee the preparations, seemed to find a peculiar pleasure in belittling my ideas and choices at every turn. One afternoon, while discussing the wedding plans with Mark and his mother, the topic of the wedding dress came up. I had chosen a simple yet elegant gown that I felt reflected my personality. Mark's mother, however, had other ideas. That dress, Anna? It's so plain. Don't you want to make a statement on your big day? After all, you're marrying into the family, she said, her voice laced with a patronizing tone. Mark squeezed my hand under the table, giving me a supportive look. Mom, Anna looks beautiful in that dress. It's her choice, and it's perfect. But his mother was relentless. Oh, Mark, let's be realistic. This is a high-profile event. People expect a certain standard. Anna, dear, you should consider something more fitting of our family's status. I tried to keep my voice steady, though I felt a sting at her words. I appreciate your concern, but I really love my dress. It's special to me. Her response was a dismissive wave. Well, it's your day, I suppose. But remember, it's not just about you. It's about how you represent us, too. As the days went by, her comments became more frequent and cutting. Marion criticized the flower arrangements, the menu choices, even the invitations. Each remark was a subtle dig at my background and my inability to meet her lofty standards. Mark and I had many conversations about this, often late into the night. I can't believe she's being so difficult, Mark would say, frustration evident in his voice. I wish she could just see how amazing you are, how you make me happy. I would lie there, feeling his arms around me, a mix of love and sorrow in my heart. I knew it wouldn't be easy, marrying into your family, but I didn't expect it to be this hard. The wedding day dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil churning within me. My parents and I had worked hard to make everything perfect, despite the constant criticisms from Marion. As I dressed in my simple but elegant gown, I hoped the day would pass without incident. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with love and heartfelt vows. Mark's eyes shone with affection and promise as we said our I do's. However, looming over the joyous occasion was the apprehension of the reception to follow, particularly the speeches. As expected, Marion took the microphone, her presence commanding the room's attention. The air was thick with expectation as she began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," she started, her voice loud and clear, "today we have gathered to witness the union of my son Mark with Anna, let's say, a person from a different circle." Whispers spread through the guests. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. She continued, her words sharp and unyielding. "While some may commend Mark for his charitable heart in lifting a beggar from the streets, we must be cautious. It's essential to keep our family's reputation and standards high, not let them be diluted by those who are clearly freeloaders, seeking to elevate their status by clinging to a family of higher standing." The room fell into a stunned silence. My parents looked at me, their faces a mix of shock and hurt. Mark's face was a mask of disbelief and anger. The guests, a mix of our friends and Mark's high society acquaintances, looked on uncomfortably, unsure of how to react. My heart sank, and a profound shame washed over me. Her words, so cruel in public, were more than just insults. They were a deliberate attempt to shame and belittle me in front of everyone we cared about. As she concluded her speech with a forced toast to our future, the applause was hesitant and muted. The room was enveloped in an awkward silence, the joy of the occasion marred by her venomous words. Mark stood up, his voice trembling slightly. "I'm sorry, Anna. This isn't what I wanted." His eyes were apologetic, filled with a mix of love and sorrow. I looked around at the shocked faces of our guests, feeling incredibly humiliated. The weight of her words hung heavily in the air, casting a shadow over what was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. The atmosphere at the reception was still tense following the disparaging speech by Mark's mother, when his grandmother, Mrs. Eleanor, a figure of respect and authority in the family, requested the microphone. Her poised demeanor and serious expression immediately drew the attention of all the guests. "Good evening," she began, her voice clear and firm. "I have something important to say. Anna, you have faced unwarranted criticism today, criticism that no one deserves, especially not on their wedding day." I looked up in surprise, and Mark, beside me, appeared equally astonished. Mrs. Eleanor then turned towards Marion. "It seems we have forgotten our own past and where we come from. Let me remind everyone here, especially you, that before you were the lady of this house, you were a maid working under this very roof. It was here that you met your husband." A hush fell over the room. Mark's mother's face turned a shade paler, her eyes widening in shock and embarrassment. Mrs. Eleanor continued, her tone unyielding. "So, for a former maid to stand here and scorn someone for their humble beginnings and modest means is not only ironic, but deeply hypocritical." I could hardly believe what I was hearing. The room was engulfed in a stunned silence, every guest hanging on to Mrs. Eleanor's every word. You, who rose from poverty, should be the last person to judge or belittle another based on their background. We should be proud of Anna's integrity and strength, not deride her for it. The guests shifted uncomfortably, and whispers began to circulate. Marion sat motionless, the impact of Mrs. Eleanor's words evident on her face. In this family, we value character over wealth, kindness over status. Anna exemplifies these values, and I am proud to welcome her into our family, Mrs. Eleanor concluded, her gaze softening as she looked at me. The room erupted into applause, a stark contrast to the earlier muted response. Marion sat there, completely humbled, her earlier arrogance replaced by a visible sense of shame. To be honest, I didn't feel sorry for her. Mark whispered to me, "I never expected Grandma to stand up for us like this." I squeezed his hand, feeling a mix of relief and gratitude. "She's amazing." The rest of the evening felt lighter, the air cleared by Mrs. Eleanor's candid defense. Guests approached with warm congratulations and sincere smiles. I felt that they were all on my side. It felt damn good. As we left the reception, hand in hand, I felt a renewed sense of confidence and belonging. Mrs. Eleanor's words had shifted the dynamics, breaking the insidious plan of a cruel and not the smartest woman. The days after the wedding were heavy with an unspoken tension that hung over Mark's family like a dense fog. It all came to a head during a family meeting at Mrs. Eleanor's house, where the air was thick with expectation and apprehension. As we gathered in the grand living room, Mrs. Eleanor began without preamble, her voice firm and unwavering. "What happened at the wedding cannot be overlooked. The way you spoke to Anna, it was disgraceful." She addressed Marian directly, her eyes sharp. Mark's mother, usually so composed, looked smaller somehow, her usual confidence diminished. "Eleanor, I've already apologized to Anna," she said, her voice tinged with a hint of defiance. "It's not just about an apology," Mrs. Eleanor retorted. "Your actions reflect on this entire family. You've become accustomed to a lifestyle funded by the family's money without appreciating its value." Mark's father nodded in agreement, his expression serious. "My mother is right. You've lost sight of what's important." Mrs. Eleanor then laid out her decision, each word deliberate and clear. "I've decided to cut off the financial support you've been receiving. It's time you start contributing to this family instead of just taking. You'll need to find a job and learn to live within your means." The shock on Marian's face was evident. She turned to her husband, seeking support. "You can't agree with this? She can't just cut me off like this." But Daniel surprised her. "I stand with my mother on this. You've gone too far this time. It's for your own good." Marian's eyes filled with anger and disbelief, her usual poise crumbling under the weight of her new reality. Mark, who had been silent, spoke up, his voice steady. "Mom, Grandma's decision is harsh, but it's fair. You need to understand the impact of your words and actions." I sat there, watching the scene unfold, feeling a mix of sympathy and relief. Mark squeezed my hand under the table, a silent show of support. The meeting ended with Mark's mother in a state of shock, the reality of her situation slowly sinking in. She was obviously used to living at the expense of her family, and all thoughts of work caused her a migraine. I could barely contain a chuckle. As we left, Mark leaned in close. "I never thought I'd see the day when Mom would be at a loss for words, but maybe this is what she needs to change." I nodded, feeling a cautious hope for the future. Perhaps this will be a new beginning for her, for all of us. The family reckoning had been tough but necessary. It was a pivotal moment that promised to reshape the dynamics within Mark's family, hopefully for the better. The honeymoon was a welcome escape for Mark and me. As we walked along the sandy beaches, the soothing sound of the waves provided a much-needed respite from the recent family turmoil. One evening, as we watched the sunset, Mark wrapped his arm around me. "I'm sorry our wedding turned into such a drama, Anna. I wish things had been different." I leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his embrace. "It's okay, Mark. It wasn't your fault. What matters is we're together now, away from all that stress." Mark sighed, looking out over the ocean. "Yeah, but when we go back, we'll have to face the reality of my mom's situation. It's going to be tough for her." I nodded, understanding his concern. Maybe this will be a chance for her to grow, to see things from a different perspective. We spent our days exploring and our nights talking about our future. The challenges we had faced seemed to strengthen our bond, reaffirming our love to each other. On our last night, as we packed our bags, Mark looked thoughtful. "You know, Anna, everything that happened, it made me realize how important you are to me. I can't imagine going through life with anyone else." I smiled, touched by his words. "I feel the same, Mark. We've been through a lot, but it's only made our relationship stronger. We can handle whatever comes our way, as long as we're together." As we headed back home, I felt a sense of peace. The honeymoon had not only been a break from the chaos, but a time for us to solidify our bond, to prepare ourselves for the new chapter in our lives. We were returning to a changed reality, but we were doing it together, stronger and more united than ever. The future was uncertain, but I was ready to face it with Mark by my side. Coming back from our honeymoon, Mark and I were unsure of what awaited us at his family home. The car ride was quiet, both of us lost in our thoughts about the new family dynamics. As we arrived, the first thing we noticed was the absence of Mark's mother. Inside, we were greeted by his grandmother, Mrs. Eleanor, who wore a knowing smile. "Welcome back, you two. I suppose you're wondering about the changes here," she said, her tone light but with an undercurrent of seriousness. "Yes, where's Mom?" Mark asked, looking around. Mrs. Eleanor took a deep breath, her smile still in place. "Well, after you left, Marion caused quite a scene. Demanded that I restore her financial support. When I refused, she decided to leave. She's now living in a small apartment and, from what I hear, is looking for a job." Mark and I exchanged glances, the news sinking in. It was a drastic change from the luxurious life she was used to. "And there's more," Mrs. Eleanor continued, leaning in as if to share a secret. "Your father is considering a divorce. He's had enough of her antics. Seems like she finally pushed him too far. Well, she brought it upon herself." Mark's expression was one of shock mixed with a hint of relief. "I can't believe it. I mean, I knew things would change, but this is more than I expected." I reached out, touching his arm. "It's a lot to take in, but maybe this is for the best. A chance for everyone to start fresh, on a more honest footing." Dinner that night was an oddly serene affair. The absence of Mark's mother felt, but not in the way we had anticipated. The conversation was more open, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like there was a real sense of family. As we drove home later that evening, Mark was pensive. "I always hoped for a change, but I didn't expect it to happen like this. It's going to be a big adjustment for Mom." I nodded. "It's a tough situation, but maybe it's a necessary step for her to grow, and for your dad too, to find some peace." The ride home was reflective, both of us contemplating the new reality we were returning to. The family we left before the honeymoon was not the same one we were coming back to. It was a sobering thought, but in many ways, a hopeful one. Change, though painful at times, was often the path to something better, and we were ready to face it together. My name is Sarah, and this is my story. I'm married to Tom, a kind-hearted man with a smile that could light up the darkest room. We've been married for 4 years, but it feels like we've been together for a lifetime. We met at a local coffee shop, bumped into each other by accident, and the rest, as they say, is history. But there's one part of my life that feels more like a recurring bad dream. Martha, Tom's mom. Martha is, well, she's a character. Since we got married, she's had this habit of dropping by unannounced. It was annoying at first, but now it's just part of our daily routine. She's got something to say about everything and anything I do, and it's never praise. It was just another Tuesday evening. I was in the kitchen, the aroma of roasted chicken filling the air, setting the table for 3. Tom was on his way home, and Martha, of course, decided to pop in. "Chicken, Sarah? Again?" Martha walked into the kitchen, her voice dripping with disappointment. "If it were me, I'd have made pork. Tom loves my pork roast." I tried to keep my cool. "Tom likes chicken too, Martha, and it's healthier." She clicked her tongue, moving closer to inspect the salad. "Lettuce and tomatoes. How original." Just then, Tom walked in. "Something smells good," he said, wrapping his arms around me. He kissed my cheek before noticing his mother. "Mom, what a surprise." "Not a good one, apparently," Martha muttered, eyeing the chicken like it had personally offended her. Tom caught my eye, a silent plea there. "Be nice to her," it said. "She's had a tough year." I sighed, the fight draining out of me. "Dinner's ready. Let's eat." We sat down, and the usual happened. Tom talked about his day. I chimed in with stories of my own, and Martha found a way to criticize every single thing. When Tom complimented the chicken, saying it was just as good as any pork roast, I saw Martha's lips thin, but for once, she kept quiet. That night, as Tom and I cleaned up and Martha watched her favorite game show in the living room, I wondered how many more dinners like this I could take. It wasn't the chicken or the pork that was the problem. It was the constant feeling of not being good enough for the woman who mattered most to Tom. But as I looked at Tom, who was whistling while drying the dishes, I knew I'd endure it, for him. Because that's what you do for love, right? You put up with a little rain to get to the rainbow. Or in my case, a little bit of Martha to get to the rest of my life with Tom. If life were a straight road, mine had taken a turn into a lane with speed bumps named Martha. When I found out I was pregnant, Tom and I were over the moon. But joy comes with its own set of challenges. My job as an event planner was demanding, with hours as unpredictable as Martha's mood swings. So I made the tough choice to step down to a less taxing role, which unfortunately meant a smaller paycheck. It was a Sunday morning, and I was flipping pancakes, humming to myself, feeling content. Tom was reading at the table, and then, as if on cue, Martha walked in, her presence immediately changing the air. "So, Sarah, how does it feel to contribute less to the household?" Martha didn't waste any time, going straight for the jugular as she poured herself a cup of coffee. I flipped another pancake, choosing my words carefully. "It feels responsible, Martha. I need to take care of myself and the baby." "Babies don't need money, huh? Interesting logic," she retorted, taking a sip and making a face. "This coffee is weak." Tom looked up, his brow furrowed. "Mom, that's not fair. Sarah is doing what's best for our family." Martha scoffed. "Oh, please. When I was pregnant, I worked until the day I gave birth, and I made sure to contribute equally." I plated the pancakes and sat down, trying to keep the peace. "Times are different now, Martha, and I'm still working, just not as much." She shook her head, her disapproval as clear as the sunny day outside. "You just make sure you don't get too comfortable. Money doesn't grow on trees." The conversation hung heavy over breakfast. Even the pancakes tasted like tension. Tom squeezed my hand under the table, a silent show of support. But as I watched Martha pick at her food with a sour expression, I knew this was far from over. I was bracing myself for a long road ahead, full of Martha's backhanded comments. But in my heart, I knew the peace of mind from a lesser-stressed pregnancy was worth any pay cut. And I'd do it all over again if it meant a healthier me and a healthier baby. Life has a funny way of flipping the script. Before Jamie, my home office was a place of tranquility. Now it's a circus, and I'm the juggler. Working from home while taking care of a newborn is like trying to thread a needle on a roller coaster. But it's our roller coaster, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. One Wednesday afternoon, as I was knee-deep in emails and baby burp cloths, the doorbell rang. I knew without looking. It was Martha. "Just a minute," I called out, balancing Jamie on one hip and my laptop on the other. When I opened the door, there she stood, purse and judgment in hand. "You look like you could use some help," she remarked, pushing past me into the living room. I followed her, settling Jamie into his bouncer. "I've got it under control, Martha. It's just a busy day." She peered at my laptop screen, then at Jamie, who was trying to decide if he was hungry or sleepy. "Doesn't seem like it. You know, when Tom was a baby, I made sure everything was spotless, and he was always my focus." I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to defend my scattered living room. "Well, times have changed, Martha. Working from home is a balancing act." She sat down, watching me like a hawk. "Does Tom know how chaotic it is here?" I sat across from her, trying to maintain a sense of calm. "Tom understands. He knows I'm doing my best." Martha tutted, looking around with thinly veiled disapproval. I suppose your best will have to do." I wanted to tell her that my best was more than enough, that I was a good mom and a good worker. But with Jamie starting to fuss, I didn't have the energy for another round with her. As she left, Martha's parting words were, "Remember, Sarah, a mother's place is with her child, not with her work." I closed the door gently, leaning against it for a moment. Her words stung, but as I picked up Jamie and he smiled, all gums and drool, I knew I was doing all right. Work can wait. These moments with Jamie cannot. And if that means my living room is a bit messy, so be it. It's our mess, and it's perfect. 4 years into our marriage, and life had settled into a rhythm, albeit one constantly interrupted by the discordant notes of my mother-in-law, Martha's visits. The first year of Jamie's life was a whirlwind of diapers, late-night lullabies, and the struggle of maintaining a career from the confines of our home. Now, as I stepped back into the professional arena, my heart ached with the separation from my little boy, but also fluttered with the excitement of reclaiming a piece of my identity. The office was just as I remembered, yet everything felt different. Colleagues welcomed me back with smiles and gentle inquiries about Jamie. My desk, once a shrine to efficiency, now also housed a colorful array of drawings and a photo of Jamie's toothless grin. Each email I sent was punctuated by thoughts of him, each project plan a reminder of the plans I had for his future. Arriving home that evening felt like crossing a finish line. I was greeted by the music of Jamie's giggles as Tom, ever the doting father, flew him around the living room like an airplane. They were in their own world, and for a moment, I was an outsider looking in. It was a pang of jealousy only a mother returning to work could understand. Before I could even kick off my shoes, the door swung open and Martha made her entrance. "Sarah, back to work, I see. And Jamie?" she asked, her tone laced with accusation. "He's been at daycare, and he's doing great," I said, trying to keep my voice light as I took Jamie into my arms. She raised an eyebrow, a silent judgment I knew all too well. "Daycare? At his age? I never would have." Tom intervened. "Mom, the world's different now. We're doing what's right for our family." Martha huffed, moving to the kitchen. "Well, I hope you know what you're doing." The conversation hung in the air, a stalemate of generational differences. Tom and I exchanged a weary look. This was our normal, a delicate dance of defending our choices. Dinner was a quiet affair, Jamie's high chair an island of cheer in a sea of unspoken tensions. Martha barely touched her food, her disapproval a palpable presence at the table. Afterward, as Tom put Jamie to bed, I found myself alone with Martha. "Martha, I know you don't agree with our choices, but I need you to trust that we're doing what's best for Jamie," I said, clearing the plates. She looked at me, her eyes softening for just a second. "Sarah, I just want what's best for him too." "I know, and I appreciate that. But best can mean different things," I replied, hoping to bridge the gap between us. She nodded slowly. "I suppose you're right, but it doesn't mean I have to like it." As I finished the chores and sat down to catch up on some work, the house quieted down. I mulled over the day's events, the juggle between professional and personal, the constant scrutiny from Martha. Each thought was a thread in the complex tapestry of modern motherhood. Over the next few weeks, I found my stride, balancing deadlines with daycare drop-offs, boardroom meetings with bedtime stories. I was proving to myself, more than to Martha, that I could excel at both roles. But her words lingered like a shadow, a reminder of the tightrope I walked daily. One evening, as I watched Jamie sleep, his chest rising and falling in peaceful slumber, I realized that this was my why. The long hours, the missed cuddles, they were all for this moment of tranquility, for the future we were building. And as I turned off the light, a sense of determination settled in my heart. Martha might never understand, but that was okay. This was our life, our choices, our grind. And with Tom and Jamie by my side, I was ready for all of it. When Tom and I approached Martha about watching Jamie while I worked, she accepted with a strange spark in her eye. "Of course I'll watch him. A grandmother's place is with her grandchild," she had said, almost triumphantly. The first day, I left Jamie with her, armed with a list of instructions and a kiss on his forehead. "If you need anything, call me," I reminded her, feeling the familiar tug at my heart as I walked out the door. "Sarah, go to work. We'll be fine," Martha said, her voice tinged with the confidence that only grandmothers possess. But as the days passed, her enthusiasm began to wane. Each evening, I returned to a litany of complaints. "He wouldn't nap. He's too fidgety. He throws his food," she'd report with exasperation. One evening, as I handed her a cup of tea, I ventured cautiously, "Martha, if it's too much, we can look into a daycare for Jamie." She set her cup down with a clatter. "No, I don't trust those places. I'll watch him." "But you seem so tired, and I hate seeing you like this," I replied, concern lacing my words. Martha's eyes met mine, stubborn as ever. "I said no, Sarah. I'm his grandmother. It's my job to endure. And who better to look after him than family? Her refusal was a familiar dance, one where my suggestions were met with resistance, my concerns with cold rebuttals. Okay, Martha, if that's what you want, I acquiesced, knowing that arguing was futile. Each morning, I left Jamie in her care, my heart squeezed tight with worry. Each evening, I returned to find Martha a little more worn, a little less patient, but always insistent that she would continue caring for him. Her resilience was as admirable as it was frustrating. I watched her pour her love into Jamie, even as it drained her, and I was left in a constant state of gratitude and guilt. Tom and I would talk after Jamie's bedtime, turning over options in quiet conversation, but we always circled back to Martha's steadfast refusal to let anyone else take over. Just when I thought we had settled into our new normal with Martha looking after Jamie, the unthinkable happened. I was in the middle of a work presentation when my cell phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket. Excusing myself, I stepped out to see Martha's number on the screen. "Martha, I'm at work. Is everything okay?" I answered, my voice tight with concern. "Sarah, I can't do this today. You need to come and get Jamie. Now." Martha's voice was terse, frazzled. I felt a surge of anxiety. "What's wrong? Is Jamie all right?" "He's fine, but I'm not. I need you to come. I can't handle this," she insisted. Panic knotted my stomach. "I can't just leave work at a moment's notice, Martha. Can it wait until my lunch break?" There was a pause, and then, "You'll regret not coming," she said ominously, and hung up. My heart raced. I called back, no answer. I called the daycare to see if they could take Jamie last minute. They could, but I needed to drop him off. I rushed back to my presentation, my mind far from work. An hour later, as soon as I could, I hurried to my car, calling Martha again. Still no answer. Then, a call from an unknown number stopped me dead in my tracks. "Mrs. Thomas? This is Officer Daniels. We have Jamie here at the police station. A woman brought him in, said she couldn't care for him anymore." My breath caught in my throat. "I'll be right there." I sped to the station, thoughts whirling in chaos. Tom met me there, his face pale with worry. "Mr. and Mrs. Thomas?" The officer greeted us. "Your son is safe. The woman, she said she was the grandmother, left him here. She claimed she was feeling unwell." Relief flooded me at the sight of Jamie in the officer's arms, unharmed. "Thank you," I managed to say, taking Jamie into my embrace. Tom and I exchanged a look, the same question in our eyes. What do we do about Martha? We found her at home, sitting on the sofa, flipping through a magazine. "Mom, what happened? Why did you leave Jamie at the police station?" Tom's voice was a mix of anger and disbelief. Martha looked up, unfazed. "I told Sarah I couldn't do it. I wasn't feeling well, and I needed rest." "But you left our son with the police," I exclaimed, still holding Jamie tightly. She shrugged. "I knew they'd find you. I just needed some peace and quiet." Tom ran his hands through his hair, frustration etched on his face. "You can't just abandon a child, Mom, especially not your grandson." Martha sighed, a theatrical display of exhaustion. "Well, I told you I needed you to come, Sarah. You should have come." The implication that this was my fault stung, and I realized then that Martha's manipulations knew no bounds. This wasn't just about her being tired or ill, it was about control. As we put Jamie to bed that night, his small frame snuggled between us. The severity of Martha's actions sank in. This was a breach of trust that couldn't be mended with apologies or excuses. We had to protect our little family, and unfortunately, that meant setting boundaries with Martha. She had taken her opposition to me too far, and we couldn't risk Jamie's safety on her whims. The morning after the police station incident, our house was steeped in a heavy silence. Tom and I sat at the kitchen table, cups of coffee untouched, while Jamie played with his toys on the floor, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around him. "We need to talk to her, Tom. What she did." I started, the anger from the night before simmering in my voice. Tom nodded, his face grim. "I know. I'll call her." He dialed Martha's number, and I could hear the faint sound of a ringtone from the living room where she slept. There was a click, and then her voice. "Tom, what is it?" "Mom, why didn't you tell us you were feeling unwell before taking Jamie to the police?" Tom's voice was steady, but I could hear the underlying strain. There was a pause on the other end. I just needed to rest. I thought they would call you immediately." Martha's voice was a mix of defensiveness and weariness. "But that's not the way to handle it, Mom. You scared us to death." Tom pressed on. "I didn't mean to." Martha's voice cracked, and I wasn't sure if it was genuine remorse or another act. Tom sighed. "We're going to see what the officers at the station say. They mentioned there was a recording." Martha was silent again, and then, "Fine. Do what you need to do." The call ended, and Tom and I got ready to go to the station. We needed answers. At the station, Officer Daniels greeted us. "We have the footage from when she brought Jamie in. You should see this." We braced ourselves as the officer played the video. There was Martha, looking calm and collected as she handed Jamie over to the officer. Her voice was clear, devoid of distress. "I can't do this anymore. He's the grandson." My heart sank. There was no sign of the sick, distressed grandmother she had claimed to be. "We need a copy of this," Tom said, his voice hard. Back home, Martha was pacing the living room. When we walked in, she turned to us, a question in her eyes. "We saw the footage, Martha," I said, my voice cold. "You weren't sick. You weren't in distress. You lied." Martha's face fell, and then, unexpectedly, she sat down, her shoulders slumping. I couldn't handle it. I thought I could, but..." Tom interrupted her. "You put Jamie at risk. You lied to us, to the police. How could you?" Tears streamed down Martha's face, but the theatrics didn't move us this time. "I'm sorry," she whispered. But it was too late. The trust was broken. That evening, after Martha had packed her things and left, Tom, Jamie, and I sat in the living room, a tight little circle. We didn't say much, but we didn't need to. We had each other, and we would move forward, together. The truth had been painful, but it had also set us free. It had only been a few days since Martha had left when she unexpectedly reappeared at our doorstep. As if the incident had never occurred, she stood there with a smile, offering to watch Jamie. "Martha, what are you doing here?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I've come to help with Jamie, like before. You obviously need the help," she said, brushing past me into the house. I was dumbfounded. "Martha, after what happened, you think we can just go back to how things were?" She turned to me with a defiant look. "Well, it wouldn't have happened if you had come when I called," she retorted, her words sharp like daggers. Before I could respond, Tom walked in, his face darkening at the sight of his mother. "What are you saying, Mom? That this was Sarah's fault?" Martha's eyes didn't waver. If she had been a stay-at-home mother like she should be, none of this would have happened. That's when Tom exploded, the anger and frustration that had been simmering for days finally boiling over. "How dare you? You do this out of spite for Sarah, and you put Jamie in danger because of it." Martha recoiled as if slapped, her facade crumbling. "Tom, No, Mom, I don't want to hear it. You've crossed a line. You deliberately ignored Sarah. You neglected your grandson, and for what? To prove a point?" His voice was a crescendo of outrage. She tried to interrupt, to defend herself, but Tom wouldn't have it. "I can't trust you anymore, Mom. I don't want you here. I don't want to talk to you until you realize the gravity of what you've done." Martha looked between us, the realization dawning that she had indeed gone too far. Without another word, she turned and left, the finality of the moment hanging heavy in the air. Tom turned to me, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and resolve. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I should have seen it sooner, but I promise you, Jamie's safety comes first. We come first." I nodded, the solidarity between us more potent than ever. "I know, Tom. We'll get through this, just like we always do. Together." We knew the road ahead would be without Martha, at least for the foreseeable future. It was a painful but necessary decision, a line drawn to protect our son, our family, our peace.